What's up guys, Joey here. So I've been testing out Spider-Man Remastered on PC with a Ryzen 5 5600X and RX 6700 XT. And I'm basically running you've probably already seen this if you're looking up this game. I'm running the Digital Foundry optimized settings, except they were using an RTX 2060 or something like that. They were using RTX cards, and I'm using an AMD card, so FSR 2.0 instead, and the highest we get is quality because the way that it's laid out is slightly different. But I'm using quality because we don't want the image quality to go down. Like, we want to keep it as good as possible while still getting an FPS boost. And then under the graphics tab, it's basically a copy-paste of the Digital Foundry optimized settings, except RT is off. And there's a good reason for that. I'm going to actually show you what RT is doing. And it might seem like at first it's better because you get Spider-Man's reflection accurately in all reflective surfaces. But there is something else it does that it's kind of detrimental to the image quality, and you'll see what I mean in a second. But these are just the settings, just if you wanted to replicate them, and you can see the resolution I'm running, 3440 by 1440, and the kind of FPS we are getting in between these two reflective buildings. We are up in the 180 range with these optimized settings, but it does dip. And the other important thing to take note of is when you're swinging around, that's where you're looking for the performance drop, because staring at a reflective surface and comparing RT on versus off, yes, there's a hit with RT, but if you're swinging around, FPS is only taking a 5 to 10 hit, that's like minor, like it's not a big deal. And one sec, I'm going to turn this down even more because he keeps talking. Maybe I can turn the speech down. Let's do it. Oh, there was an option to turn off the JJ podcast because Jameson randomly talks. Okay, so you can see here, this is with RT off, and we are at 160 FPS, but if I swing around this building, this is where it matters, this is what you need to be looking at, is you can see we're getting around 110, depending on how I angle the camera, like angling it up 103, it actually went, because the view distance, you can see those buildings further away, that's what's causing the hit. We're going all the way down to 60, okay, and 54 on the 1% lows. So that's what we need to be looking at, rather than just comparing like 150 FPS right up against the building. That doesn't matter as much. And as well, though, this is what I want you to pay attention to. So we cannot see ourselves swinging that well, or we can't see ourselves swinging at all. But unless you're looking for your reflection, it's not something that's going to hurt your gameplay or immersion in a significant way, unless you're specifically looking for it. So if I'm doing this and I'm like, I want to see myself, that's where you need RT. But if you're just like going to the next objective and you've pinged off whatever objectives in the nearby area, you're not going to be looking directly at the like if you're looking at it at a side angle, even with RT on, you won't really notice the reflection that much, unless you're right up against the glass or wall running. So wall running is where you'll notice your reflection more, but you do still get a shadow with RT off, which is fine. I think that's fine. And as well, if you stop, there is a slight colored reflection, almost like a proper real-time reflection, but they've nerfed it. And I think they could have done this better, to be honest. Like, I reckon they purposely nerfed it and made it less realistic. Like, they could have done a better job of this and made it slightly more, even if it's a little more intensive, they could have done a proper, character-only reflection and just kept the pre-baked reflections, because these reflections here with RT off are not accurate, but they look accurate in terms of when you're moving, you're not going to notice that they're not one-to-one with the background. So you can see here that building there with the top, if I put the aimer, there is a building that looks kind of like it, over there, or over there. But you know what I mean? Like, you have to be looking, and what else I noticed is, when you look down especially, that's where you lose a lot of the accuracy. So there is some kind of greenish looking building with the green, edge over there, and there is nothing like that in the actual game. So that's just a reflection only, like pre-baked inaccuracy, as well as a lot of these other ones. Like, that's a different building to this. And there's a huge building here that is not even in the reflection, or maybe it looks further away. I'm not sure, but you know what I mean? Like, it's not accurate, but the glass looks good, and the reflections themselves at this distance look great. There's a lot of color, and the glass looks, more importantly, which is what RT is supposed to focus on, is the glass and the way those reflections look with RT off looks really clean. Like, they've got building cleaners, window cleaners in this game. And that's kind of what you want to see, because especially if it rains, the glass is going to look like this. It's going to look reflective, and just ignoring the fact that my reflection is not really apparent, and I'm only getting a bit of a shadow like that, if I have the camera angle right, that's what you're going to be paying attention to. And then I'm going to turn it on. This is what I want to show you. There'll be a slight delay when I enable RT, like it has to enable, but basically if you run higher than this or you turn the object range too high, 6 is the sweet spot, and they already explained this in the Digital Foundry video, but the surfaces, all the surfaces in the game turn into frosted glass, and that's where you actually get a visual detriment. You actually get lower quality surfaces, even though the reflections are 1-to-1. They're accurate, like I'll show you now. So you can see I've turned this on. So this is optimal settings. It doesn't go below high. We'll see if that's doing anything. No, it's just I need to get out of here. There we go. So you can see, look, we went from like mirror glass to frosted glass, and all the surfaces are like this now. And I think they did this to keep the performance up. And on the one hand, we get 1-to-1 accuracy now. So every single building you can see in this reflection is in the game world. So that building over there is that one there. And this building here with the water tank thingy is just over there. And so, we can make it out. And that tall one there, whatever that is, we can see it there. And, this pointy one here, it's over there. So it's accurate. And more importantly, we can see ourselves, which is really nice. This is what's cool. Like when you're running up a building, seeing yourself does add a lot of immersion. But look at the frosted glass. I mean, it's kind of crappy. All the buildings look dirty now. And they're all the same. Like, they're all using this weird material. It's almost like metal. It doesn't look as much like glass anymore, or it's tinted. Like, it's been tinted that you can't see a proper, clear building reflection anymore. Like, all the buildings also look hazy, even though they're more accurate. The pre-baked reflections are cleaner. So if I just stop here, you can see how they've got like a blur to all of the buildings. That's what they did to keep performance up, but this surface is like a metallic tinted surface now. And that's kind of where I wanted to share this, is if you're looking at just the aspect of performance, that's not the biggest, or not the only point. And as well, you can see, we'll just see the performance now. When I do the faraway view distance, we're still dipping to about the same. Like it's still in playable territory. It feels very smooth even at 60 FPS. So I wouldn't factor that in. If you're running similar hardware, I wouldn't actually factor RT on versus off performance as the deciding factor. I would factor in how much you value seeing the tiny Spider-Man silhouette when you're going next to buildings over better quality surfaces. Because I think the clean frosted glass does look, the clean glass, sorry, with RT off does look a bit better. And you can't always see your reflection too. Like, see, I'm swinging here. I can't even make out my reflection at this distance. I have to get really close to start to see it. And depending on the light in the game, because it's RT reflection, you might only see it on one side of a building. Like, see, I can see it there. I can see myself. But on this side of the building, I can't make it out. And I don't think many people will be able to. There we go. There's like a second of it. But you see what I mean? Like, not every surface is reflective to your character anyway. So unless you're wall running, which is the only time when you really notice it, that's the main consideration, is you want RT on and the increased or the slight performance hit. In real world, like traversal, it's only like a 10 FPS hit on the average. So, looking around, see we're down at 60. If I just reset the FPS, just because of the angle, we're dipping around 60. And then as I get close between the buildings, it's up at 90 and 100. So I'm not staring directly. It's mainly the view distance, actually, that's tanking the performance. And that happens with RT on or off when you get high enough above the buildings. Like when you get that view distance there. See, it's 70 FPS around here. So I'll try to get a better view distance angle that really tanks the FPS. I might have to be swinging at the same time. So I can try. Or if I get a bit higher. It's like height and movement seems to be what does it all. I'll try going a bit higher. There might be an angle I can get to really emphasize the performance of the view distance. There we go. So see this? Oh, stopped when I jumped. It stabilizes, so that was funny. Just as I jump up, we see a FPS drop, as I'm moving, it's 60, but then once I stabilized and sat still, that FPS dropped. The FPS climbs back up. Like, it was around 60 at this angle, looking over that way. So anyway, we can try to take a look if RT is affecting the static, you know, we're at 72 here. And we'll see if we're getting an RT hit just from not looking at reflection specifically. And we do. It's about 10 FPS. Okay? But then, like if we were looking at it was dipping at 60 when I went at the right angle and I like kind of jumped up. Do we still get a massive drop? It's still, yeah, see it? It's going back to around 60. So look at the bottom D3, D12, that's the actual live FPS, the bottom one. And that is, like, we're getting high numbers when we're right up against surfaces, but the important part when you're traversing and looking off into the distance, it's still about the same as with RT, on versus off. See, we're still in the 60 range. And then, right up close, let's see how much we dip to here. In between the buildings, we're at 120, 118. And I'll just make sure it's consistent, because I don't want to swing back with our, like, and change the setting, and then it's because we're facing it that way. So 120, 130 range. Stop right here. And then we're going to turn it back on. So this isn't graphs or anything for you to look at. It's just to see the live numbers. This game did just release. And just to give you guys this like first-hand look at how it is with the RX 6700 XT. So now we'll swing back to, and we were at 120 with RT off, and now we're down at 80. Okay? So there is a significant hit to the swinging, but it feels smooth either way. Like I don't feel like I can't play like this. It's not unplayable. So if you really want RT, and you don't mind that all the buildings are frosted now, it is kind of cool to see yourself. But even though like we lost about, however, like 120 down to 80, that's like a 40 FPS hit, right? Once we get back to the, you know, higher view distances in certain areas of the game, it's just dipping to around the same as what RT, like, disabling RT will still dip to around 60, these spots, as I swing around it. Go to the top of the folder. So it's way less of an impact having RT enabled when you factor in the minimums and what kind of low FPS you're going to need. So yeah, swinging between buildings, you'll lose about 40 FPS, but like, see, this is rather nice having 130 here, but I don't feel like it's going to help me play because the combat's different. Like the combat's more like Assassin's Creed type of thing where you're countering and blocking and dodging, but it's not like a Twitch shooter where you need to aim for the head. And more importantly, though, with RT off, look at this glass. So we're not getting accurate reflection. The glass is just, the material quality, I just want to emphasize this, it is much more realistic glass. Like, that's how glass is meant to look, rather than frosted and metallic. Frosted and metallic. And even though it's not accurate, yeah, I do like how the glass looks with RT off. And so maybe if I could live without, and I want slightly more performance, or if you're on a lower spec system and you're choosing like a 6600 XT or something, and you're choosing between RT and seeing your self-reflection, I don't think the self-reflection is super important because you won't always see it even with RT on, but you will always see the glass. You know what I mean? Like, you'll always be looking at glass when you're swinging past, and if it's all frosted, it doesn't look as nice. So I'll just turn RT back on just so you can get another look at the frosted glass and the significant difference it has, and just, you know, back and forth this video if you want to compare or run it side by side to see. But yeah, look at the glass now. It's all dirty. It's metallic. It actually looks less reflective because I can barely make out any of the real-time reflections because they're all blurred. Alright guys, so this marks the end of the video. I do have the first hour of gameplay going up with no commentary with RT enabled, and I might do the following hour, like the second hour of the game, with RT disabled, just to have like a raw comparison where you could run both videos side by side, and just, you know, for anyone that might be interested in RT enabled versus disabled raw gameplay without anyone talking over it. So yeah, for me, like, I'm interested to hear what everyone else has to think. Like, what are your opinions? And do you prefer enabled versus disabled? My own personal opinion is I like both for different reasons. Like, if I could have a mixture of both, like, mainly I like Spider-Man himself showing up in the reflections when you wall run. That's the best thing about the RT. But I don't like how it adds this weird, dirty glass frosted effect to all of the material in the game. Like, or it emphasizes a decal that's already there. I'm not sure. I think you can see the dirt with RT disabled, but it's just so much more prominent with it enabled. As you can see here, this whole building looks like it's got a copy and paste of the same dirt patterns. If that makes sense. And that's with RT enabled. And yes, we are getting realistic silhouettes for this time of day in the game. But it's just jarring. Like, I'll turn it off and just take a look. So you could argue that the blockier, you know, cube map silhouettes look worse, but now I can actually see into these cubicles because the glass looks clean, like the material changed. So yeah, thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye.